Beneath the endless sky of ancient Greece, myths drifted like whispers on the wind, carried across seas and mountains, telling of gods who shaped the order of the world. Among them stood Zeus, a figure of power and presence. To many, he was the thunderer, the lord of Olympus, the one who commanded the storm with lightning and the voice of thunder. Yet beyond the roar of thunder and the flash of lightning, there was another truth, one often overlooked, yet deeply woven into the lives of both mortals and gods. Zeus was the guardian of justice, the protector of sacred oaths, the unseen witness who listened when promises were spoken, ensuring no word would vanish into silence. In those times, a vow was not just speech, it was destiny, a bond stronger than iron, woven with the threads of trust, carrying the weight of life and honor. To break an oath was more than deception. It was to disturb the fragile balance of the cosmos, to twist harmony into chaos, and awaken the judgment of the God who watched all. Yet Zeus did not judge from cruelty or vengeance. His justice rose from the eternal need to preserve order, to keep harmony steady across heaven and earth. And so tonight, we walk into that ancient world, a world where every promise echoes forever, and where justice wears the face of Zeus, the eternal guardian of truth. In ancient Greece, words were never just sounds. They were alive, carrying weight, meaning, and power, shaping bonds between mortals and gods. A promise was not spoken lightly, for to speak was to bind oneself to truth. Every vow carried the presence of the divine, and Zeus was always listening. Zeus, guardian of oaths, stood as the unseen witness to every sacred word spoken. Whether whispered in temples or shouted in courts, each oath reached his ears. For mortals, an oath was more than agreement. It was a bridge between the human and the divine, tying lives to cosmic order. Breaking it was not mere deception, it was shaking the foundation of trust itself. Imagine a farmer vowing fair trade, or a sailor promising loyalty to his captain. Picture a king swearing peace beneath the wide heavens, his words binding nations. No paper sealed these promises. No law ensured their strength, only Zeus as witness. The Greeks feared oath-breaking not for men's anger, but for divine consequence. Falsehood, they believed, disturbed the delicate balance of life and order. A liar might prosper for a moment, but harmony would always crumble in time. Misfortune followed broken promises, not as punishment, but as natural unraveling. And so oaths were spoken with care, often in solemn, sacred rituals. Priests invoked Zeus Horkios, protector of vows, to guard truth in every promise. Sacrifices symbolized the life bound to an oath, not for cruelty, but for reverence. A story tells of a traveler who swore by Zeus to repay borrowed gold. He hid the coins and betrayed his word, thinking he escaped his duty. But storms ruined his journey, and illness struck him soon after. For the Greeks, this was no accident. It was Zeus reminding him of truth. Justice for Zeus was not cruelty, but a way to guide mortals back. His presence warned that words had weight, that truth was sacred to life. Even the gods themselves were bound to their oaths before Zeus. On Olympus, when gods swore, they called upon the river Styx as witness. The Styx oath was unbreakable, even immortals feared to betray it. The cost was not only wrath, but the eternal loss of honor and trust. Thus mortals lived with careful awareness of every vow they made. Zeus shaped not only religion, but daily life through his silent guardianship. Justice began not in stone laws, but in the truth carried in the heart. To live justly was to live in harmony beneath Zeus's watchful gaze. Every promise spoken beneath the open sky belonged to the greater cosmos, and every word carried the silent echo of Olympus itself. This was the sacred weight of oaths unseen, eternal and unyielding, guarded forever by Zeus, as steady and timeless as the heavens above. When people think of Zeus, they often imagine the god of thunder and storms. They see lightning flashing from his hand, thunder shaking the earth, and clouds obeying his will. But to the Greeks, Zeus was more than a storm bringer. He was the guardian of justice, the protector of balance, the keeper of harmony itself. Justice was not written in stone tablets or bound by mortal courts. It was the unseen thread that kept the cosmos aligned and human life in order. Zeus, seated on Olympus, held that thread firmly in his grasp. From quarrels in villages to disputes between kings, his presence was invoked. When judgment was needed, men raised their hands and called upon his name. To swear by Zeus was to invite truth itself to stand as witness. No lie could escape him. No deceit could remain hidden from his gaze. Picture a council in a crowded square, voices raised in anger. Two men accuse each other of betrayal, and the crowd stirs uneasily. The leaders step forward, lift their arms to the heavens, and call on Zeus. It is not their words alone, but the weight of his presence that matters. For Zeus, justice was not punishment for its own sake. It was restoration, the act of setting right what had been broken. If harmony was disturbed, it had to be mended, and Zeus ensured it was. He was Zeus Xenios, protector of guests and strangers in every land. Hospitality was sacred, and to betray it was to dishonor Zeus himself. A guest wronged was not only a mortal wronged, but justice itself wounded. He was also Zeus Horkios, the one who enforced every solemn oath. To lie was to fracture truth, and to fracture truth was to weaken justice. Zeus guarded both, for they were inseparable, bound like threads of the same fabric. Even kings could not escape this law, no matter their power. A ruler who lied might stand tall for a moment, but his kingdom would crumble. Trust was the true foundation of rule, and once broken, no throne could last. The Greeks saw such ruin not as chance, but as Zeus's quiet judgment. Justice for Zeus was not vengeance, nor cruelty, nor the hand of wrath. It was the flow of the world, the natural return to balance and truth. When rivers flowed, crops grew, and peace endured, harmony was alive. When lies spread and justice faltered, Zeus moved to steady the scales again. Even the gods on Olympus turned to him when disputes broke out. Quarrels among immortals ended with Zeus, for his voice carried final authority. He did not strike them down, but reminded them of duty and order. For justice was not only for mortals, it was the law of the cosmos. To the Greeks, this vision of Zeus was not far away or abstract. It was present in daily life, in every word spoken and promise kept. When truth prevailed, they felt Zeus nearby, a silent guardian of fairness. When oaths were honored, harmony echoed across heaven and earth alike. So when they gazed into the sky, they saw more than clouds. They saw the throne of the god who ensured balance never broke. Thunder was his warning, but silence was his justice fulfilled. And in that silence, mortals found peace, knowing Zeus had restored order. High upon Olympus, Zeus was imagined seated on a golden throne, his presence vast, his gaze eternal. Yet to the Greeks, another vision of him endured. Gentler but no less powerful Zeus, with the scales of balance. These scales were not ordinary. They were symbols of justice, delicate harmony that kept the universe steady. On one side lay truth, on the other, deception. On one side sat fairness, on the other, greed. As long as Zeus held the scales, balance remained. and life continued in fragile but enduring harmony. The Greeks saw the world as fragile, chaos always near, ready to tip the order into disorder. But Zeus's role was to steady the scales, to ensure order did not dissolve into chaos. This power was not cruelty, but responsibility, a divine duty that shaped both gods and mortals. The scales appeared in tales of destiny, as when Zeus weighed the fates of warriors before battle, one life on one side, another on the opposite. Their destinies revealed as the balance shifted. When one side fell lower, it was known whose time had come, not punishment, but fate unveiled. Yet the scales were not for gods and heroes alone. Mortals, too, lived under their silent weight. Every vow kept or broken, every act of kindness or betrayal added to the measure of life. Imagine a merchant cheating his neighbor with false weights, coins heavy in his hand, but justice aware. The scales of Zeus felt the imbalance, and harmony, though delayed, would demand correction in time. The cheated man might prosper elsewhere. The dishonest merchant's fortune might sour, balance returning at last. This was no superstition, but the way the Greeks saw the universe itself, always seeking equilibrium. Like tides rising, like seasons turning, balance always returned, and Zeus was its eternal guardian. Thus, Zeus was feared, but more deeply, he was respected as the protector of natural order. His scales taught that every action carried weight, and no deed, however small, escaped notice. For those suffering injustice, the scales offered hope, comfort in the belief that truth endured. Wrongs not righted by mortal hands would be weighed in time by Zeus, patient and eternal. The poet spoke of Zeus's unblinking gaze, piercing through deeds into the very heart of intent. A gift given with pride weighed less than kindness given humbly, hidden from eyes, yet felt by gods. A false promise burdened the scale more than silence kept in truth, for essence outweighed appearance. The scales measured not show, but soul, the essence no mortal could hide, no mask could cover. Mortals lived, knowing each word, each action, added to the eternal balance of the cosmos. Zeus might not strike with thunder for each misstep, but the unseen weight was always counted. Storms across the horizon seemed to mortals like Zeus, adjusting the scales, correcting imbalance once more. Peace after strife was seen as his hand steadying the balance, restoring order where chaos grew. Justice was not abstract, but real, as constant as rain, as unshakable as the turning sky. The scales of Zeus told a truth. Lies unravel, fairness endures, and harmony is never forgotten. As long as Zeus held the balance, mortals believed the world would not fall into chaos. This vision of Zeus, not as thunderer, but as guardian of balance, endured in timeless memory. Thunder passed quickly, but balance endured forever. And Zeus, holding the scales, kept the cosmos whole. In the ancient world, words carried a weight beyond imagination. Each spoken promise, a bond tied to destiny. To the Greeks, an oath was sacred, and every vow was watched by Zeus, the guardian of trust. When a man swore by Zeus, he placed his life, honor, and soul into the god's unseen hands. To swear falsely was to disturb cosmic order, awakening forces greater than any mortal punishment. Kings swore before war, merchants before trade, friends for loyalty, lovers for devotion, each bound by sacred words. Above them all, Zeus listened, the silent witness to every vow spoken under sky or roof. No whisper escaped him. No chamber was hidden. Every promise carried weight upon his eternal scales. There is a tale of two brothers who quarreled over inheritance and swore before Zeus to obey. One brother kept his word, but the other broke it, seeking gain in secret against the oath. His fortunes withered, crops failed, his family suffered not by man, but by imbalance in divine justice. Zeus did not punish with thunder, but by withdrawing harmony, letting imbalance undo the oathbreaker's life. It was not vengeance, but balance returning, the universe correcting itself through the God of truth. For this reason, oaths were holy acts, never spoken lightly, never used to deceive or manipulate. To swear an oath was to stand before Zeus himself, the eternal guardian of truth and justice. Even the gods honored this power, for Hesiod tells us false oaths touched even the immortals. If a god swore falsely, consequences followed, for Zeus upheld truth above all, even among Olympians. Mortals feared the weight of oaths, but found comfort knowing falsehood could not endure against balance. The scales of Zeus tipped slowly, but always toward truth, never allowing lies to rule forever. Imagine living in a world where every promise mattered, every word tied to divine listening ears. To live dishonorably was to invite imbalance, but truth aligned life with the harmony of cosmos. Zeus was not only punisher, but also protector, the god of trust that held life together. Without trust, no family, no city, no friendship could survive. Oaths were the foundation of all. In trade, trust allowed fairness. In courts, trust allowed justice. In love, trust kept hearts true. Everywhere trust was needed, Zeus was present, unseen yet near, weaving harmony through sacred promises. The Greeks saw Zeus not only in thunder but in handshakes, vows, and whispered words at night. They imagined him weighing words of kings and peasants alike, all equal before the scales of truth. The lesson was clear. Promises were never empty. They carried weight in heaven and across the earth. No word was lost. Every vow echoed forever, measured by Zeus, guardian of oaths and truth. For the faithful, he was protector. For the false, he was judge, eternal and unyielding in balance. Zeus ruled not only the skies, but truth itself, and truth, once spoken, was eternal and divine. Life in ancient Greece was shaped by both the will of the gods and the choices of mortals. At the heart of those choices lay justice, how humans lived under the watchful eyes of Zeus. Zeus was not only watching kings and warriors, he observed farmers, merchants, and even sailors at sea. Every action, no matter how humble, carried weight on the divine scales of balance and justice. To cheat a neighbor was never just a small wrong. It disturbed the cosmic order that kept the world in harmony. To betray a friend was not only a personal failure, it sent echoes that reached Olympus itself. But to keep a promise, however simple, was to align one's soul with the eternal harmony of the universe. One tale tells of a fisherman who swore by Zeus to share his catch if fortune blessed his nets. The sea granted abundance, filling his boat with more fish than he could carry. Yet greed overtook him, and he kept every fish, breaking the oath he had spoken to the gods. Soon the sea grew silent. His nets returned empty, storms followed him, and his boat began to fail. No thunderbolt struck him down, but the harmony of his life was gone, replaced by misfortune. Another story speaks of a farmer who swore to treat his workers with fairness and honesty. Neighbors mocked him, saying kindness would make him poor and strip him of profit. But his workers remained loyal. His fields flourished, and his name grew respected throughout the land. Through these stories, the Greeks believed justice was not swift revenge, but the steady restoration of balance. Those who kept their word lived in harmony. Those who broke it found themselves out of step with the universe. Oaths shaped their courts and communities. A man accused might swear by Zeus to speak only the truth. To lie under oath was to risk not just human punishment, but the judgment of Olympus itself. Even if courts failed, the gods never forgot broken vows or false words spoken before heaven. Trust became the invisible bond that held families, cities, and nations together under Zeus's gaze. Without trust, no trade could thrive, no city could flourish, no peace could endure for long. The trials of mortals were not only wars or battles, but the daily struggles of truth and loyalty. Every decision became a test of balance, every vow a thread woven into the fabric of justice. When neighbors bargained in the market, they remembered Zeus was listening. When lovers whispered promises, they spoke knowing the god of oaths stood witness to their words. When rulers swore to serve their people, they did so beneath the unblinking eyes of Olympus. These trials were not cruel, but opportunities to live in harmony with the cosmic order. Zeus did not demand perfection, but he demanded truth, the most sacred bond of mortal life. To lie, to cheat, to betray these acts drew mortals closer to chaos and away from harmony. But to honor one's word was to walk in step with the gods and the universe itself. The fisherman who lost his fortune, the farmer who gained respect, both taught the same lesson. Justice was not about power or punishment. It was about balance and the keeping of vows. Every mortal was reminded that life was measured not only by achievements, but by loyalty to their word. In the end, justice did not belong only to kings or courts. It lived in every human choice. And above those choices, Zeus watched, silent yet certain, the eternal keeper of oaths and balance. In ancient Greece, an oath was more than a promise. It was a sacred bond, tying human voices to divine ears, linking mortal intention with cosmic order. Zeus, as guardian of oaths, stood at the heart of this bond. Swearing an oath was never casual for the Greeks. It was not polite words or empty ritual, but a spiritual act calling upon Zeus as witness and judge. Imagine a courtroom in Athens. Two men stand before the magistrates, one accusing, the other defending his case. They place hands upon a sacred altar, swearing by Zeus to speak only truth. For the Greeks, this was a moment of ultimate seriousness, not mere formality. To lie under oath was to defy Zeus directly, risking divine judgment beyond any human sentence. Oaths were not confined to courts, they shaped life itself. Marriage vows, treaties between cities, and whispered promises all carried Zeus's presence. One tale speaks of two cities, weary of war, swearing peace by Zeus. For years, peace brought prosperity, and both peoples flourished under harmony. But when greed returned, one city broke its vow, hoping to claim more land. At first, they gained advantage, but soon crops failed, ships sank, leaders fell into ruin. People said it was not chance, but Zeus's steady hand of justice. Another tale tells of a young man swearing to honor his father's dying wish. Temptation pressed him to abandon his path, but he clung to his vow. In time, perseverance brought prosperity, and the gods seemed to bless his life. Through such stories, oaths became bridges between fragile mortals and the eternal divine. Men could forget, but the gods, especially Zeus, never did. This belief created a culture of accountability in every part of Greek life. A ruler could not promise for gain, then turn aside without consequence. A soldier could not swear loyalty and then betray his comrades without fear. Even lovers whispering vows knew Zeus was listening among the stars above. To betray in love was not only heartbreak, but a broken bond with heaven. Diplomacy, too, rested upon oaths sworn in the name of Zeus. Envoys from rival cities sacrificed, then bound treaties with solemn vows. These ceremonies were not empty. They anchored entire nations in divine law. Without oaths, trust would vanish. And without trust, no city could survive. Zeus's guardianship ensured oaths were foundations, not only punishments, but possibilities. Yet oaths carried danger when taken lightly or broken with careless hearts. Even true words became peril if the promise was not kept. So the Greeks weighed every vow, knowing each was a seed of destiny. For Zeus, oaths revealed truth, showing who lived with balance and who with greed. In temples, in markets, in councils, oaths echoed under Zeus's gaze. They bound present choices to future consequences, weaving lives into divine order. To honor an oath was to honor the very fabric of the cosmos. To break one was to tear threads of harmony, inviting chaos to return. Every vow spoken in Zeus's name carried weight heavier than stone or gold. It was not mere speech, but truth sealed in the presence of the divine. Through oaths, Zeus shaped not only courts but the hearts of all mortals. Justice lived not in words alone, but in vows kept beneath heaven's watch. In ancient Greece, justice was not only for the common people. It reached palaces and thrones, testing rulers as much as farmers or sailors. Zeus, the guardian of justice, was watchful over kings and leaders. In their hands lay not just their fate, but the fate of cities and nations. One broken promise from a ruler could bring war, famine, or ruin. Thus, Zeus's gaze upon them was sharper, his silence heavy with expectation. One story tells of King Minos of Crete. He prayed to Poseidon for a sign, swearing an oath to honor it. Poseidon sent a bull from the sea, white and strong, a divine gift. Minos swore to sacrifice it in gratitude, showing loyalty to the gods. But he kept the bull, tempted by greed and blinded by pride. In breaking his oath, he disturbed the balance of divine justice. Though no thunderbolt struck, misfortune followed his reign. The bull became a source of unrest and disorder in his land. The lesson was clear. Broken vows bring chaos to ruler and people alike. Another tale tells of Solon, lawgiver of Athens. He promised fairness to the Athenians through his reforms. The rich urged him to bend laws for gain. The poor pressed him for more. Solon stood firm, honoring his oath to bring balance to all. His name became a symbol of wisdom, his city a beacon of order. His story showed that loyalty to oaths brought harmony and trust. These tales were not mere legends, but lessons for centuries. They taught that rulers were not above justice, but bound by it. The higher the throne, the heavier the weight of the oath. Every vow carried the lives of thousands, not just a king's honor. Zeus did not judge with cruelty, but reminded rulers of truth. A king who honored promises ruled in harmony with the divine. A king who betrayed them lost trust and Olympus's blessing. Philosophers later said Zeus was the silent witness to laws. Without justice, no city could stand, no army could endure. Justice was the foundation beneath temples, markets, and palaces. Kings were flawed men, tempted like any other mortal. But when they swore by Zeus, they bound themselves to eternity. Keeping that bond meant ruling in harmony with heaven. Breaking it meant ruin that no army could defend against. From Minos' downfall to Solon's wisdom, the pattern was clear. Zeus's justice was steady, patient, and unyielding. Every crown rested on fragile truth. Every throne stood only as long as promises were kept. The Greeks believed Zeus listened above politics and ambition. The trials of kings were not only in wars or conquests. They were in words, oaths, and the integrity of their hearts. And always, Zeus judged them, holding justice in eternal hands. When we think of justice, we imagine kings and rulers under Zeus's gaze. But justice was never meant only for the mighty. For the Greeks, every person lived beneath Zeus's eternal watch. His judgment touched neighbors, friends, and families alike. A shepherd swearing to care for another man's flock carried sacred weight. A merchant promising fair trade spoke words bound by divine truth. A sailor vowing to return with his crew tied his life to Zeus. Each oath was a bridge, spoken with Zeus as the silent witness. To break it was to fracture trust and disturb cosmic balance. One tale tells of two friends fighting over a field of land. Both swore by Zeus, but only one spoke with honesty. The false oath brought illness, failed crops, and shame to his name. The people said Zeus had judged without thunder or storm. Another story speaks of a greedy merchant crossing the sea. He promised fair profit, but returned with lies and hidden gold. Soon storm struck, his ship broke, and his fortune crumbled. The people whispered Zeus had punished his betrayal of trust. But those who kept promises found harmony in their lives. Farmers honoring agreements saw harvests full and fields fertile. Sailors who trusted one another faced gentler seas and safe return. Justice was not only punishment, but also blessing and balance. In the agora, the heart of the city, trust was currency. Every deal, every handshake was sacred under Zeus's unseen gaze. Without trust, no trade could thrive, no city could endure. Philosophers later said oaths were the pillars of society. They taught that justice lived in honesty, fairness, and respect. A city was not strong by walls, but by shared trust. Zeus ensured that this trust was never taken lightly. Imagine such a belief, where every word shaped destiny. Even in solitude, Zeus listened, reminding mortals to honor truth. Justice became the heartbeat of community, guiding daily life. In fields, in markets, in homes, Zeus's spirit was present. Justice was not about great trials alone. It lived in small choices, in truth over lies, loyalty over greed. The Greeks believed Zeus blessed those who honored their word and humbled those who betrayed trust, no matter how small the oath. As time passed, the Greeks reflected deeply on the meaning of justice. Justice was not just law or order, it was the heartbeat of the cosmos itself. At its center stood Zeus, unwavering, guardian of justice and oaths. He did not frighten mortals, but reminded them of the balance of life. Philosophers taught justice was the golden mean, the path away from chaos. Every kept promise was more than loyalty. It was harmony with eternity. Each true word was an offering to Zeus, lived out through daily truth. Poets sang of justice as a radiant figure walking among mortals. When oaths were honored, she sang with joy and walked with grace. When lies prevailed, her voice grew sorrowful, and she turned away. Through her, the Greeks saw justice as alive and always present. Zeus was not cruel, his justice was patient, allowing mortals free will. But freedom carried weight. Every oath lingered long after it was spoken. Trust, they said, was the root of every bond in life. Without trust, families failed, cities crumbled, friendships broke into dust. High on Olympus, Zeus ensured that trust would never be forgotten. Yet, there were tales of mercy woven into his guardianship. Those who sought forgiveness found justice softened with understanding. Zeus was not a tyrant, but a father who restored harmony. Justice was meant not to crush, but to realign what was broken. Through war and peace, famine and feast, justice remained unshaken. Even when kings fell, justice stood steady as the stars above. The judgment of Zeus was often quiet, not thunder nor flame. It showed in lies unraveling or loyalty bearing fruit in time. Subtle yet unyielding, it humbled mortals who could never escape it. The Greeks lived with the reminder: honor words, honor oaths, live true. Zeus was not there to terrify, but to keep the world in balance. His justice held families together, cities strong, and hearts at peace. The story of Zeus is not one of fear, but of hope. It tells us promises matter, truth has weight, and justice endures. Though slow at times, justice always arrives, steady and eternal. This balance was the treasure the Greeks cherished through all ages. The myths of Zeus may have faded, yet his presence endured beyond the fall of temples and the silence of rituals. He remained the guardian of justice, the protector of oaths, living on in the hearts of the people. Every oath spoken carried weight, for the Greeks believed promises echoed far beyond the moment they were made. Parents passed this truth to children, teaching that words were sacred and not to be wasted. A father would remind his son, "Zeus hears your vow, and he does not forget." A mother would whisper to her daughter before marriage, "Honor your promise, for it binds you to more than man." These reminders were woven into life, quiet but firm, shaping a culture built on trust and truth. As philosophy grew, the presence of Zeus became more than myth. It became a principle of justice itself. Courts and assemblies invoked him, swearing oaths that transformed words into sacred acts. Justice was not only decided by men, it was sanctified by the unseen witness of Zeus. The Romans too carried this belief, calling him Jupiter, binding treaties, marriages, and contracts under his watch. Cultures shifted, yet one truth held firm. Words carried power, and promises upheld the world. Even centuries later, echoes of Zeus lingered in sacred vows and solemn oaths, when rulers swore to govern fairly, or when nations sealed peace. His spirit whispered beneath the act. The god may have changed form, but the principle endured. Truth sustains order. Trust sustains life. We may not tremble at thunder as a divine voice, yet we live by the same ancient rule. Without trust, society cannot stand. Without justice, peace cannot last. Without truth, no bond can endure. The legacy of Zeus's judgment is not thunder, but the quiet persistence of honesty and faith. It isn't a handshake that seals a deal, a vow of loyalty between friends, a promise whispered in love. Every time we keep our word, we carry forward the ancient belief that justice still lives. Zeus may no longer reign in temples, but his spirit lingers in the choices humanity makes daily. His story is more than myth. It is a mirror showing us that we are all guardians of justice. Each of us holds power to keep promises, to build trust, and to protect balance in the world. The Greeks believed Zeus's gaze was eternal. Perhaps it still is, in the memory of justice itself. To live with truth is to live with Zeus. To break a vow is to invite chaos, but to honor it is to walk in step with the eternal order of the cosmos. This story ends not with fear, but with a call to speak with care and to live with honesty. For when we keep promises, we keep alive the eternal flame of justice itself, and we walk under the unseen eyes of the guardian who never sleeps, the timeless Zeus.